Hello students, this is Dr. Karuna, Assistant Professor in Zoology, Gurukula Degree College, Bongir. Today we shall discuss about the respiratory organs and the process of respiration, how it occurs in humans. As we all know, respiration is nothing but the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, which helps in our process of breathing. So, respiratory system is the set of organs that allows a person to breathe and exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide throughout the body. It involves various organs such as nose, nasal chamber, okay, it leads into the pharynx, larynx, lungs, and all these things come under respiratory system. What are the important functions or the chief functions of the human respiratory system? The main functions are that they help in breathing, they form the path or the passage for the passage of the air from the nose to the lungs, and also they help in the exchange of gases during the process of external and internal respiration. The system also helps in filtering, warming up and humidifies the inhaled air. It also includes the vocal cords. As it contains the vocal cords, it helps in the production of sound. It also helps to regulate the body pH, and it contains receptors for the smell. It also supplies the body with a good amount of oxygen and also removes the carbon dioxide from the body. It clears the excess water and heat. What are the various parts of the respiratory system? The various parts of the respiratory system include nose, mouth, mucus, cilia, pharynx, tonsils, larynx, epiglottis, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, lungs, and finally it ends in alveoli. All these parts all together form the respiratory system, and each part has its own function and its own significance. Anatomically, respiratory tract can be divided into two groups, that is structurally as upper respiratory tract and lower respiratory tract. And the upper respiratory tract, it contains nose, nasal cavity, sinuses, pharynx and larynx. And coming to the lower respiratory tract, it includes trachea and bronchial tree along with lungs. And functionally it is divided as the conducting portion and the respiratory portion. The conducting portion is nothing but it is the interconnecting cavities and tubes that conduct air into the lungs. It includes nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea and bronchi. And the respiratory portion, this is the system where the exchange of respiratory gases occurs. It includes bronchioles, alveolar ducts and alveoli. This is the picture showing the respiratory anatomy. The parts like a nose is seen here, bronchial tubes are seen, lungs are seen, and the final the last but not least very important parts of the respiratory system, that is alveoli, are also seen in this picture. These parts in detail. Nose. Nose is the first organ of respiratory tract, and it helps in entry of the air from the atmosphere into the body. The nose performs the processes of warming, moistening and filtering of the inhaled air. It has two portions. They are the external nose. It is nothing but the nose that we see from the external side, and the other thing is the internal nose. It contains nasal cavities. Nose is nothing but it's a bony structure, but it's not completely made up of a strong bone, but it is made up of cartilaginous bone. It contains mucus secreting cells called as goblet cells. And the next, the nose leads into the next cavity called as the nasal cavity, and this cavity at its base it has two openings called as nostrils, and these nostrils they can also be called as anterior nares, and these enter or open into the nasal cavity. And this nasal cavity contains small hairs which are called cilia, and they help in filtering of the air. This nasal cavity posteriorly it has nostrils called as posterior nares, and these open into the pharynx. It also has the spaces called as paranasal sinuses. These are air filled sacs and they help, they contain the mucous membrane and they help in lowering the weight of the skull. Functions of nasal cavity. Nasal cavity, as we all know, it helps in respiration, it helps in warming up and humidifies the air. It also filters out the dust, pollen and other particles before they reach the lungs, and also protects the respiratory system. It helps in the olfaction, that is helps in the process of sensing the smell, and also helps in the removal of sinus drainage, that is waste materials whichever is formed during the cold, and also it helps in the immune defense, protects by trapping the pathogens, and also it helps in speech, contributes to the production of nasal sounds during the speech. The nasal cavity further leads into the structure called as pharynx. It is a tube like structure, it is nothing but the throat, and it is a funnel shaped tube and it lies posterior to the nasal cavity. It is composed of three parts. They are nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx. And the functions of the pharynx include, it is a common passageway for air and food and also helps in the speech and hearing. Then pharynx further leads into a structure called as larynx. This is nothing but a triangular chamber. It is present in front upper part of the neck and it joins both the pharynx and trachea. This larynx contains the cords called as vocal cords. These are a fold of muscle of connective tissue, and this helps in the production of sounds, and they also help by the change in the tension of the vocal cords results in the or controls the pitch of the sound. This larynx further leads into a structure called as trachea. It is also called as windpipe. It is measured about 10 to 11 centimeters and it extends downwards up to 5th thoracic vertebrae. At the end of the trachea, it divides into two, and that two branch like structures are called as bronchi, and each, that is right side branch enters into the right lung and the left side branch enters into the left lung, and this this trachea is formed of about 16 to 20 C-shaped structures or ring like structures which are made up of hyaline cartilage, and it helps in the cough reflex. And coming to the next part of the respiratory tract, that is the trachea, as we have discussed in the earlier slide, it is divided into two branches, that is bronchi, and further this bronchi divides further as primary bronchioles, and this primary bronchioles further divides as secondary bronchioles, and further these secondary bronchioles will divide into, they will subdivide into tertiary bronchioles, and finally they end up in the respiratory bronchioles, and at the end of each respiratory bronchiole there is a sac like structure called as alveoli, and these are also called as alveolar sacs, and these are the main parts of the exchange of the gases or respiratory gases. Here we can find the structure of the bronchioles and alveoli. And coming to the number of alveoli, each lung of a human consists of about 300 million alveoli, and these alveoli they contain about 70% of the blood cells. And why? Because the blood is the substance or the medium which carries or which brings in and takes away the oxygen and carbon dioxide. So the alveoli, they contain about 70% of blood vessels. Alveoli, the pulmonary alveolar is a spherical projections of the respiratory bronchioles, and the membranes of the alveoli plays a very major role in the exchange of the gases from the blood. As we discussed in the before, functions of alveoli, it is nothing but it helps in the diffusion of gases between the blood and the environment. It helps in the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide during the process of breathing. Here we can find the fine structure of alveolus. Coming to the main chief important organs of the respiratory system are the lungs. These are a pair in number, they are spongy, soft, and they are cone shaped. They are present in the thoracic cavity and they are separated by the space called as mediastinum, and also they are enclosed by structures like diaphragm and rib cage. They are extending from the clavicle to the diaphragm. The various parts of the lungs include apex, base, costal surface, medial surface, and each lung further divides into lobes. And coming to the number of lobes, the left lung has 2 lobes and the right lung has 3 lobes. The lobes again further divided into numerous lobules, and each lobule again contains alveoli. The left lung is the smaller in size than the right lung due to the space occupied by the heart in the thoracic cavity. Coming to the protective structures of the lung, the lungs are enclosed in a covering called as serous membranes. A pair of or a double layered serous membrane collectively called as pleural membrane is present. This covers the lungs, and the space between these pleural membranes is called as pleural cavity, and this cavity is filled with the pleural fluid. This pleural fluid is produced from the pleural membranes, and the function of this pleural fluid is nothing but it helps in lubricating the lungs during the process of respiration or during the process of breathing, and it prevents the friction. Coming to the function of the lungs, as we all know, the main function of the lungs is respiration. This facilitates the gases exchange from the environment into the bloodstream. It also supplies the body with oxygen and helps in the removal of carbon dioxide. It warms up and adds on the moisture to the air that we breathe in, and also it adjusts the temperature of the body, which that means it makes that it should match the body temperature should match the air temperature. So it helps in maintaining or adjusting that temperature, and also this helps in protecting our body from the irritants and dust particles whichever is present in the air that we breathe in. And also the lungs help in regulation of the pH and also help in sensing the smell of various substances or scents. The important pigments are respiratory pigments. Most of us think that blood itself is carrying the oxygen or carbon dioxide, but the chief parts or the chief substances of the oxygen or carbon dioxide carrier is nothing but the respiratory pigments. So as we all know, in a single cell animals like protozoans, the respiratory gases are diffused or they transfer from the surface of the body of the organism into the environment, or the exchange or vice versa occurs through diffusion. But in the case of complex organisms like mammals, the respiratory gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide, they has to be transported with the help of circulatory system. That is it includes the circulatory system includes, as we know, it contains blood and the circulatory organ, that is heart. But here we are focusing on the blood. The blood carries oxygen and carbon dioxide, but blood itself is not the true part or true substance which is carrying the oxygen and carbon dioxide, but the main substance or the pigments which are carrying the oxygen and carbon dioxide are called as respiratory pigments, and these respiratory pigments are the real carriers of respiratory gases, and they help in the transport and exchange of the respiratory gases. The respiratory pigment which is present in humans is hemoglobin, which is red in color, and each hemoglobin molecule carries about 4 oxygen molecules. Coming to the mechanism of respiration. Respiration, we know that it is nothing but the exchange of gases. Here the process in which the air moves in and out of the lungs is known as breathing. Movement of the air from in and out of the lungs is called as breathing, and it is carried out through the respiratory organs. This is a continuous process and it goes on throughout the life of the organism for its survival. Without respiration, no breathing, no life. So obviously organism requires breathing. So whenever there is no breath means there is something wrong which might be obstructing the breathing. And the oxygen rich air is taken in from the atmosphere, and in exchange carbon dioxide rich air is given out into the atmosphere. So, how it happens? A single breath comprises of a inhalation and a exhalation. Breathing rate. What is breathing rate? It is nothing but the number of times an organism or an individual breathes in a minute is considered as a breathing rate. The breathing rate generally increases while the walking fastly during the process of walking, when that is not normal walking, when it is done swiftly, and when the running or the heavy exercises has been done, or when we do tough works or hard jobs, it results in the increase in the rate of the breathing. It decreases during the time when the body is in a relaxed condition. The average breathing rate is about 15 to 18 times per minute. The cycle of breathing process, it occurs in 2 steps, that is inhalation. It can also be called as inspiration. It is nothing but the process of taking in of the oxygen. That means breathing oxygen from the environment into the body is considered as inhalation or inspiration. It is an active process, it requires energy and it lasts for about 2 seconds. And exhalation is the other step where it can also be called as expiration. Here the carbon dioxide is taken or given out of the body. It is a passive process, that means it does not require any energy and it occurs like that, and it takes about 3 seconds. Let us see in detail the inhalation and inspiration and its mechanism. See, during the process of inhalation and inspiration, the contraction of diaphragm occurs, and this contraction of diaphragm, it results in the downward movement of the diaphragm. Okay, and also it as a part of inspiration, the contraction of intercostal muscles, external intercostal muscles takes place, and also the as a result of this, the rib cage will be lifted to upwards and it is pushed, and the sternum is pulled forward, and it results in increase in the dimension of the lungs. As a result, the volume of the lung increases, the size of the lung increases, and the space inside the lung increases. So, the atmospheric air or the pressure inside the lung decreases, and it results as a result it requires, means it makes the space for the upcoming or incoming air. So, what happens? The atmospheric air whichever is present in the environment will be entering into the body along with the oxygen. So, it rushes into the lungs. So, this is the step by the entry of the air from the atmosphere into the lungs, the step of inspiration is completed. Now, after 2 seconds, the step, that is the next step, inspiration starts. During the process of inspiration, here the relaxation of the diaphragm occurs, and the relaxation of the diaphragm results in the movement of diaphragm to the upwards. Later on, the relaxation of external intercostal muscles takes place and ribs will be pulled inwards. It results in the decrease in the size of the thoracic cavity, and also the lungs are compressed here, and the volume and the size of the lungs will be decreased, and the air pressure inside the lungs will increase. As a result, as there is no space or the space is reduced, the air containing the carbon dioxide whichever is present inside the lungs will rushes out and comes out into the environment. So, this step is called as exhalation. As the air is coming out of the lungs, it is called as expiration or exhalation, and it occurs in 3 seconds of time. As a continuation of the exchange of gases, here after the completion of inspiration and expiration, the process need to continue, because whatever oxygen and carbon dioxide whichever has entered into the body, it needs to be taken to the cells where the mutual exchange of this carbon dioxide and oxygen takes place between the blood, that is which is carrying the oxygen and carbon dioxide, and the tissue or the cells in the body. So, here from the step, once the oxygen and carbon dioxide has entered into the lungs, it will be carried with the help of blood to the place or the site or the target where that exchange takes. So, now the requirement of oxygen is at the tissue level or cellular level. At the cellular level only the cell respiration occurs and the ATP will be generated. So, if the oxygen is not reaching the cellular or cells, then cell respiration will not occur. If no cell respiration, no ATP generation. No ATP generation, the body functions will be arrested. It results in the death of the organism. So, now as a continuation to the expiration and inspiration, the exchange of gases need to takes place. So, this involves involves different steps, means here the concentration gradient, based on the concentration gradient the exchange of gases takes place. Here the exchange of gas occurs when a difference in the partial pressure exists across a semi-permeable membrane. Gas moves by diffusion from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration until the equilibrium is attained. Here the diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide depends upon the pressure gradients or pressure difference. The respiration is conducted as external, internal and cellular respirations, and this is very important. These three steps are very much important for final attaining the purpose of respiration. So, there are mainly two kinds of respirations based on the exchange of gases. They are external respiration and internal respiration. So, the respiratory system performs mainly two major tasks, that is exchanging air between the body and the outside environment. This step, as it is related to the external environment, it is called as external respiration. And next step is bringing this oxygen, whatever is entering into the lungs, this will be brought to the cells, and there at the cellular level the oxygen exchange occurs. Bringing oxygen to the cells and removing the carbon dioxide whichever is present in the cells. Okay, that means this is a byproduct or wastage of the cell respiration. It will be brought again to the lungs. Though this step where the oxygen is sent to the cells and carbon dioxide received from the cells, this step is called as internal respiration. The external respiration, let us see in detail. So, it is also called as pulmonary respiration. Why? Because here the pulmonary organs, that is nothing but the lungs, are involved. In external respiration, gases are exchanged between the alveoli of the lung and blood circulating around the alveoli. In external respiration, oxygen diffuses into the blood from the alveoli and carbon dioxide leaves the blood and enter into the alveoli. The oxygen whichever is entered into the blood is transported to the cells by hemoglobin, and the carbon dioxide released from the cells is transported to the lungs in the form of bicarbonate ions in the circulation. And coming to the internal respiration, it can also be called as tissue respiration because it occurs at the tissue level, that means at a cellular level. So, it can also be called as tissue respiration. Internal respiration is carried at tissue level where the exchange of gases takes place between the blood and the cells. The internal respiration, the oxygen is delivered to the cells and carbon dioxide released from the cells is taken up by the blood. Based on the concentration gradient, oxygen and carbon dioxide diffuse to the tissue and blood until the equilibrium is attained. So, unless the equilibrium is attained, the exchange goes on, means mutual exchange will be going on until the equilibrium is attained. And after the, as a continuation to this external and internal respiration, cellular respiration occurs. The cellular respiration is nothing but here the oxygen is used at the cellular level for the breakdown of the organic compounds like glucose in the presence of oxygen, and here carbon dioxide is released as a byproduct, and some amount of water is also released, and good amount of energy, that is ATP, is released, and this ATP or is nothing but the currency of our the cells whichever is used by our body for regular activities whatever we do. So, the energy is utilized by the organism, and the carbon dioxide whatever is generated as a byproduct will be eliminated again through respiration. The oxygen delivered to the cells is used for the oxidation of the metabolites, that is glucose, fatty acids and amino acid, that whichever is formed in the digestion will be used here and the energy is produced. It can occur both aerobically and anaerobically. If the respiration of the cellular respiration is occurring in the presence of oxygen, then it is called as aerobic respiration, and if it occurs in the absence of oxygen, is called as anaerobic respiration. So, this step is very much important for generation of energy. And there is a condition called as artificial respiration, whenever the organism is unable to breathe by itself. Okay. So, best example is during the corona time, the pandemic, many of us have suffered with the breathing problem. So, in those conditions, and also when there is a problem with the heart attack, or a sudden met with a sudden accident, or in those cases the person may enter into an unconscious state. So, during that state, artificial respiration is given to rescue that person from that problem. So, artificial respiration is nothing but it is known as the rescue breathing, as it is a technique that helps the people breathe again when they are unable to breathe on their own. It can be done manually or mechanically. So, manually or mechanically using different methods like artificial lung, pulmorator, mechanical respirator is used, mouth to mouth respiration is done. And also we have a method called as CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, which helps in bringing back the individual when he is in unconscious condition, knowingly or unknowingly. So, this the importance of this CPR or cardiopulmonary resuscitation is that it helps in improving the saving the life, improving the rate of saving of life whenever there is a danger of cardiac arrest or respiratory failure. Then how the respiration is regulated? Respiration is regulated by the brain again. Okay, it has two control centers. There nervous control center is there, and chemical control is also there. By nervous system, it is controlled by two methods, voluntary control and autonomic control. Voluntary control, it is controlled by cerebral cortex, and autonomic control, it is by pons varolii and medulla oblongata. And chemical control is by based on the concentration gradients of carbon dioxide, oxygen, and the pH of the blood. So, whenever there is more amount of carbon dioxide in the blood, then there is a requirement for oxygen. So, it helps means based on that the rate of respiration increases to input the oxygen. Whenever there is more amount of oxygen, then slowly it attains the equilibrium and the rate of respiration decreases, or it comes to the equilibrium. So, in this way the rate of respiration will be controlled and regulated. Finally, I have a request for you. So, I ask, as the lungs are the respiratory organs which play a very important role, and these lungs are being affected by smoking. So, those who have the habit of smoking, please quit smoking, because it is not dangerous only to you, but also it is dangerous to the passive smokers, whoever it might be, your family members, your friend, or your child. So, they are also being affected by smoking. So, please quit smoking, save lungs, save lives, and you live and also let others live. This is all about respiration, and thank you so much.